welcome to tonight's forum for the Pueblo City Council. My name is Steve Henson. I'm the managing editor at the Pueblo Chieftain newspaper, one of the sponsors for tonight's event, along with the 2020 Commission's Governance Task Force, Pueblo Community College's Center for New Media, and the beautifully renovated Memorial Hall. The format for tonight's event, and it's a forum, not really a debate, because City Council is a nonpartisan event, and we elect the candidates that we think will best represent us. It's really not so much a head-to-head thing as it is in some other races. So the format will be each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce himself or herself to you. Then we will go through a series of questions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the question, and then a 1-minute rebuttal if the person chooses to use that time. And then once we go through about 45, 50 minutes or so of that process, then we'll have concluding remarks by each candidate. And so, given that, we'll start over here on the right with opening remarks from Amy Nawrocki. Amy?
Thank you, Steve, and good evening. And thank you all for the opportunity to come together for this conversation on city service. I'm proud to be your District 1 representative on Pueblo City Council, and I'm here tonight, if I haven't done so already, to earn your vote to represent District 1 for 4 more years. In a little over a year since being appointed to City Council, I have been a strong advocate for my district. I have worked with many of you to create common sense solutions that make a difference to Pueblo families. I serve as a letter carrier for the United States Postal Service, and my job gives me the exceptional opportunity every day to walk the neighborhoods of District 1. I see firsthand the impact of city policy on our everyday lives. As a good listener and a hard worker, I have already made a difference in my district. We work to make the neighborhood north of the new Heroes Academy safer for our students who have a longer journey to school when 2 of our District 1 schools were consolidated. I continue to do the work necessary to stop illegal dumping in our city and to encourage recycling, a plan that makes sense to the city and will save $750,000 in taxpayer monies that we spend in cleanup efforts. I fought for a state grant-funded bike lane project on Elizabeth and Greenwood Streets that will redesign the flow of traffic and bring back a feeling of neighborhood. And it's been an honor to form a public-private partnership committee to rehabilitate the Drew Dix Park in Belmont. We have made significant progress toward a safe, active family park that celebrates one of Pueblo's Medal of Honor recipients. I understand the economic importance to a city whose workers earn a living wage, a defined pension, and when everyone has equal access to good benefits. The work that I have already done over the past year demonstrates my ability to help create a city that succeeds. I'm a wife and a mom, I'm a proud public servant, and I offer the positive leadership that Pueblo deserves going forward. Thank you.
Our next candidate is Bob Schilling. Bob?
Thank you, Steve, and thank you, everybody, for being here. What a great country. You can be on TV, you can see who's you want to elect, you can hear it from them. There's not very many places in the world like this. My name is Bob Schilling, born and raised in Pueblo, bleeds Centennial Red. Was gone for 20 years, never thought I'd come back to Pueblo. Turned out I came back 30 years ago with my wife. We have 5 children total. I have been real active in the community. Besides the 8 years I spent on council, I've been on the PEDCO board. All the boards council gets on, we all get on the same thing. Urban Renewal, PEDCO, that kind of thing. But I've been on St. Mary Corman Health Care Foundation, the Chamber Board, the Boys and Girls Club, the Nature Center, and numerous other boards. So I like participating in this community, and I'd like to participate again. And I thank you for this time. Thanks.
Our next candidate is Mark Aliff. Mark?
Hello, Pueblo. It's great to be here, and it is definitely an exciting and humbling experience to be up here on the podium with such committed individuals that are willing to run. I'm born and raised in Pueblo. I spent my whole life here, being born and raised here. My family immigrated to Pueblo in the late 1800s, where my great-grandfather worked in the steel mill. He died building the blast furnace. My family has a long history of small business within the community. My great-grandma was given a boarding house by the CF&I back when my great-grandfather died. She turned that boarding house into 3 businesses on Bay State, which was Liz's Cafe, Donahue's Cosmopolitan Club, and Tommy's Steel City Club. I went to school at Central High School. I'm married for 25 years with 2 beautiful daughters. I have 2 beautiful grandchildren that all live here in Pueblo and are part of the community. I worked my way up in the business that I'm in, the automotive industry. I started as a salesman, worked my way up to general manager. We contribute to this community about $40 to $60 million a year in sales. I manage multi-million-dollar budgets. I work closely with all our employees, and I hope to articulate to you tonight a platform that is on job growth, economic development that's real, that means jobs right away, and I hope that this resonates with you and that you find that I am the best candidate for District 3 and I can earn your vote tonight. Thank you.
Our next candidate is Ed Brown. Ed?
Good evening. My name is Ed Brown, and I am a candidate for Pueblo City Council and the current City Council rep for District 3. I want to thank the Pueblo Chieftain and PCC for providing this candidate forum and the opportunity to share my views with the citizens of Pueblo. My wife and I have lived in Pueblo for the past 60 years and in District 3 for 35 years. We raised our 2 young children here. I don't have to tell you, Pueblo is a great place to raise a family. I served in the United States Army, and after returning to Pueblo, I was hired as a firefighter in 1975, where I had the privilege of serving for over 32 years. I've served the community in various ways, mentoring youth, as a tax counselor with ARP, and with the Pueblo Human Relations Commission, to name a few. I was appointed to City Council 8 months ago, and the members of council are united on #1 goal of generating new jobs. City Council, working with PEDCO, recently announced 2 new companies come to Pueblo. Both of these companies have some type of local connection to Pueblo through friends or families. So each citizen of Pueblo has a potential connection to bringing in new jobs. It was recently announced that $108 million is coming to the city and county of Pueblo for 3 highway projects. It is the largest amount ever awarded to Southern Colorado. It was a collaborative effort between the city and county, and I'm committed to working with the county commissioners to find new ways we can work together. If elected to serve the next 4 years, I will work to add new jobs and look for creative ways to stretch your tax dollars. Thank you.
Okay, we'll now begin the question and answer portion. Ed, you'll handle the first question. Are you in favor of or opposed to the ballot amendment that would provide funding for select Pueblo nonprofits?
I am in favor of the ballot. There are 6 community organizations that have been shown to deserve our support. With our limited dollars, if they're not supported, then we're going to have to make some cuts. Just for an example, the Pueblo Zoo. If you go out there, it's smaller, but it looks, the grounds are better kept than the Colorado Springs, Cheyenne Mountain Zoo, or the Denver Zoo. So we have assets here in Pueblo that we need to support. So yes, I'm in favor.
I am not in favor of the tax initiative. I'm not in favor of any tax on our already overtaxed community. It's my opinion that these taxes only they hurt the people that don't need to be hurt the most. We have 10% unemployment. We have a child poverty rate that's hovering around 40% in this city. The last thing that we need to do is burden our people, the citizens, the hardworking citizens of this community anymore with another tax. One thing that's never came up in this tax is that in property tax alone, we're taxed 4 times the amount of other cities of the same size. You add another half-cent sales tax plus the mill levy we pay on property tax, and it is a burden to every single person in this auditorium and all of you watching at home. This tax is nothing but a ruse to take the responsibility off of City Council to live within the budget. Live within the budget. You make $78 million this year, you need to make do with $78 million or less, start building up our reserves and make things happen. Everybody has to make sacrifices. These nonprofits are not going to go away if this tax doesn't pass. They're still going to be supported. They're still going to be a part of the community. I'm just not in favor in further burdening our community anymore.
Bob?
This is a really hard question because it has really good points and it has points that aren't so good. On one shoulder stands citizens that I'm real sick of more taxes and no. The other side sits, the other person sitting on my other shoulder has been on council before. And I understand the broadness of this question and the importance of it to the community, those six in particular, but to the rest of the community. It does open up, if it does pass, it does free up some money for the other nonprofits. I'm glad you all get to vote for it because I probably am not going to really know how I'm going to vote until I fill out my ballot. That's all I got.
Okay. Amy?
Thank you, Steve. Yes, actually, I am in favor of this, and let me explain why. It's very simple economics, actually. We have a structural imbalance in the ability to generate revenue and our overall expenditures in the city budget. The city's general fund just cannot sustain these organizations any longer. So it's going to be up to you, the Pueblo voters, to decide if you want to invest in these organizations that contribute significantly to the quality of life here in Pueblo. Again, I personally support it. I believe that council supports it, and the reason why is because we're the ones who have to go through that budget and look at balancing it, and it just can't be done with the revenue we've got coming in right now. We've either got to generate additional revenue or we've got to make drastic cuts, and it's up to you, the Pueblo voters.
Okay. Ed, any other thoughts?
It is up to the voters. I mean, these organizations are going to come under more scrutiny than they are currently in order to justify the money that they'll receive. So it's up to the citizens to if they support it or not. But I do think it would make the community better.
Mark?
I mean, we have to ask ourselves what's next. If this is the way that government's going to work, then we're really dysfunctional. In other words, if this tax passes and City Council sees this as a way to balance the budget and to stay within their means, next year they're going to introduce another tax. You've already heard it tonight. They've already talked about it in their work session, that now let's work on a public safety tax. So pretty soon, the citizens of Pueblo, where we're worried about jobs, we're worried about people coming to work, we're going to be taxed out of our jobs. We're going to be taxed out of our community because we just don't want to pull up our bootstraps and create real economic development today. We have 80 jobs within the city that can be filled tomorrow. All they have to do is fund those positions. We have to change our priorities in this community. We need to change our priorities from these special interest projects to people. It's people that make the community work, and we need to put those people to work, and we have the ability to do it now within our budget. Thank you.
Okay. Bob?
I'm glad you all get to vote on it. And you all should vote on it because it's your money. I wish I could say how I knew how it was going to turn out, but I really don't. I think this is a really tough time in the economy to pass another ballot issue. Do I think it's worthwhile? Yes. Are all those organizations valuable to the community? Yes. Are all the ones that are not included in it valuable to the community? Yes. I think everybody needs to pay attention, do your homework, and then vote with your heart and what you think is best for the community as a whole.
Amy?
Thank you. And just real briefly, I do appreciate Mr. Aliff's comments about budgetary priorities, because I also share the belief that the priorities within our city budget should focus on our city workforce and our core city services. But again, it's up to you, the Pueblo voters, to decide if you want these nonprofit organizations to receive taxpayer funding or not. Because I'm pretty sure we don't have the money there now, and it's going to be really bad if it doesn't pass with the budget. Thank you.
Okay, Mark, you'll handle the next question first. There's a bit of a gamble to this. If this measure does not pass, the council's going to have some more tough decisions, and the large majority of the city's budget is salaries. Given that, would you consider a plan to freeze or even cut salaries across the board in order to maintain current staffing levels?
No, under no circumstances would I consider that. Here's my point on this. The city's responsibility and the city council's responsibility to the community is for the safety of the citizens and for a delivery of services to the community. That can only be done with people. We've already seen in the conversations on the police force is 25 officers down. If we're going to have safety in this community, we have to have police force. We have to prioritize in the budget that personnel are number one. Nothing gets funded before the people. We fund the police department, we fund the fire department and general services department. We put these people back to work. 80 jobs, $35,000 a year jobs puts $1.9 million back into the community next year. All we're doing is putting Band-Aids on the problem. We're not addressing the issue. The issue is personnel. I don't understand a council that would think that it's okay to cut our services and their responsibility to us so they can fund other things that have no essential services to us. Essential services, the police, the fire, and general services, and delivering that to us as a community is our responsibility. And I'm telling you, when I'm elected in November, that will be the number one priority, and I'll be loud and boisterous, and I'll make sure that personnel does not get cut, and we start treating our employees worthy and like they should be treated in this community. Thank you.
Okay. Bob?
Steve, repeat the question again.
Sure. If the ballot amendment does not pass, the council's going to have more tough decisions. But the problem is that most of the city's budget is salaries. And so the question is, would you consider a plan to freeze or even cut salaries and keep current staffing levels?
You know, the salaries already have been frozen for the city employees for a period of time. I can't tell you how long. And you know, you can keep cutting and you can keep cutting, but there's a point where you reach diminishing returns. And do I think we're right at that point? I was talking to some people the other day, and I mentioned the same thing. I think we're right there. You just can't keep cutting people. You've got to figure out a way to add them. They are a huge part of the budget. There is going to be some wailing and gnashing of teeth if this 1A does not pass. And there's going to be some really hard decisions. This job, everybody that's on council now and ever has been, this is a really hard job. And the decisions aren't 90 to 10, they're 49.9 to 50.1. And this is one of those. I see the goods in it, and I see the real hardships in the thing. I'm not afraid to make those hard decisions, and they are going to be gut-wrenching decisions that are going to keep whoever's on council up at night, because you can't just take these lightly. But we have to, again, look back and what's the best for the whole, and if the whole is the 50.1, that's the way I've got to go.
Amy?
Thank you, Steve. And you're absolutely right. If this ballot initiative does not pass, we're going to have to go back through the budget and cut another almost $2 million out of it. But I do not believe the way to cut the budget is to freeze salaries or to keep unfunding those personnel positions, because that's what city service is all about. I think it goes down to that basic level of what does a government owe its taxpayers? And our government owes its taxpayers the right to feel safe in the community and a healthy and secure community. And in order to do that, we need to pay city employees. Again, I think it goes down to budgetary priorities, and I certainly prioritize core city services.
Ed?
Well, I think the priorities are with the employees, but if this doesn't pass, we're going to have to make cuts, and the council is committed not to put it on the back of employees. I would love to fund the 80 positions, but unless the money's not there unless we go into our reserves, and this council is committed to balancing the budget and trying to figure out a way to hire the vacancies on the police and the fire, and committed to our core services. So build it and they come is not going to work, I don't think.
Mark, any other thoughts?
Yes. The priority of this council has been, and they've mentioned this all night, tourism, beautification, and this hasn't been mentioned, but the LED light project. We spend millions of dollars on tourism, millions of dollars on beautification. If they're telling you that the priority of this city council is jobs, they're not telling you right. The priority of this council is tourism and beautification at the expense of jobs. Why on earth don't we take, and I'm not against tourism, I'm not against beautification, I'm not against the nonprofits, but when they take priority over the people, something's wrong. We have to change that. And I'm the leader that will come to City Council with a plan that says that there's a way that we can do this. And that's by prioritizing personnel over tourism and beautification. Until we get our people working, there's nobody going to want to come to Pueblo. It can be the most beautiful town in the state. Nobody's going to want to come here. We're going to end up we're going to have tourism because we're going to be the most beautiful, well-lit ghost town in all of the Front Range.
Bob?
Tough act to follow. I'm going to go ahead and pass, let somebody else talk. I'll wait for the next question.
Well, Bob, you'll handle the next question. We've been talking about it. Economic development. It continues to be a huge need for the community. Do you believe the half-cent sales tax for Pedco remains the best approach? And do you think that there should be a ballot issue to redefine exactly how that money can be used?
Well, I said in an article in the paper, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I really believe that. I was fortunate to be at a meeting where the president of Pedco talked about our $35, $40 million, what's in there, and it seems like an astronomical amount of money. But then he did bring up some cases of who we're competing against. And I think it was in Georgia for a BMW plant. I think Pueblo's average is $28,000 per job. Georgia gave them $1 million per job. And we have to be realistic. We are not New York City, and we're not San Francisco or someplace like that. We have the money we have. We're lucky to have it. We've spent it wisely in the past, I think. And if somebody wants to bring up another ballot issue to do something different, bring it to the citizens. But right now, I wouldn't touch Pedco. I wouldn't fool with it. The voters have stuck with us during this whole time. And again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And my minute's up.
Okay, Amy?
Thank you. And again, this is one of those issues that's absolutely decided by the voters. However, I do believe that, like any business, our economic development model needs to evolve. We have the highest unemployment rate of all large counties in the state, and we have, basically, since this half-cent economic development tax has been in place. So obviously, we need to do something different. The conversation that I'm hearing revolves around somehow altering the ordinance and letting the voters decide if we could possibly incentivize our small business owners, the local folks that we have in town who are trying to keep these businesses going. It'd be great to be able to include them in the ability to either hire or expand so that, again, we could help Pueblo folks run in Pueblo small business.
Ed?
I don't believe I got a rebuttal to the last question, but I'll go on. Okay. Yes, I'm in favor of amending the half-cent sales tax to include other businesses, but we have to be very careful. The citizens have voted on it several times over the years and has been very specific as to what we could do with it. But it's been around for a long time and probably needs some modification to help out small businesses. And it'd have to be very carefully changed so the citizens would approve it. Thank you.
Mark?
When I announced my campaign for District 3 back in May, I made it clear that I felt that we have, as a community, and it's worked, the half-cent sales tax has worked. There's many, many jobs and many people in this community that have benefited from that half-cent sales tax. But I made it clear that it's time to quit focusing on people from Sweden and Kansas and Texas and start concentrating on the people in Pueblo. We have the backbone of this community is our small businesses. And not one thing has been done by Economic Development, the PEDCO Corporation, because they can't. Not one thing has been done to incentivize them and to help them bring jobs into Pueblo and to put people to work. We spend all of our time and all of our energy as a community trying to attract outside people at the expense of the people that are here. We have long-standing, well-established local businesses in Pueblo, Colorado that with a property tax savings or some other incentive could hire 2 or 3 people. You take 5,000 businesses in the city of Pueblo. If you could get 1,000 of them to hire 1 person, there's 1,000 jobs. Everything that you read says we're 1,500 jobs short of being where we need to be and putting that money back into the community. So I say if we're going to amend it, we amend it strictly and unequivocally only for small business, local small business. If any of that money, that $30 or $40 million that's sitting there is going to be spent on economic development, it needs to be spent locally and not, and I doubt that I'd give City Council any control over that money because it'll go to other places. I would definitely ensure that PEDCO maintains control and that PEDCO is directed by the voters to only spend it on local businesses in the ordinance that would be passed or the vote.
Okay. Bob, any other comments on this question?
Economic development drives this, and everybody's right. It's important to develop local businesses, and it's important to remember that PEDCO money stands somewhat aside. There's a need for both. We need to be able to support both. But I would not fool with the PEDCO money right now. If the citizens want to bring an initiative and change it, I think that'd be up to them. But again, it's worked. For some people who don't think it's worked, drive out to the industrial park, and everybody that you see out there or at Vestas that's driving home, they're going to be real glad they got that job. And call center, some people say, well, we should do more than call center. Well, you know what, everybody out there I think is pretty darn glad to have a job. So let's not get real arrogant, and let's take what we can get, because the whole will be good for the, some of the parts will be good for the whole.
Amy?
I think I've made my point.
Okay. Ed, do you have anything else on this topic?
Yes, these funds, the economic development funds, aren't controlled by PEDCO. PEDCO brings businesses forward to council. Council has the ultimate say-so on who gets the money. And we've had some pretty tough discussions on some of the proposals we've had come forward. So again, council's responsible for it. And in the past, we've had former city manager, we had a business that was trying to locate out the airport, and PEDCO turned them down. They used the sales tax money to build a beautiful Budweiser distributorship south of town on another industrial property. So it's under the control of council. Thank you.
Okay. Mark?
It's under control of council, but they are directed on what they can spend the money on. They can only spend the money on primary jobs within these companies that are outside of Pueblo. They cannot spend the money on a Pueblo business. So if you're a Pueblo small business owner and you want a little bit of help as far as a tax incentive or anything that Petco can help you with, so you can hire another person, council hands are tied on that. There's nothing they can do about that. They control the money, but they have tight reins on them when it comes to that money, that's for sure. And rightfully so.
Okay, Amy, you'll handle this next question first. There has been a push for a Citizens Police Review Board that would have much more than just an advisory role. What's your position on that?
Right. You know, I don't think we know right now what the end game is going to look like, but I certainly agree that the conversation on police-community relations needs to continue in our community, and I think it needs to include the entire community. As a former law enforcement officer myself, I understand the unique difficulty of policing a community, and I feel like I could be a helpful voice in that discussion going forward.
Ed?
I currently serve on the Human Relations Commission and was involved in the discussions on a police review, and I've come to have I worked for 32 years alongside police officers as a firefighter, and in these negotiations I developed even greater respect for the job they do, because of if they it's hard to they can either get chewed out for not doing the right thing or chewing out for being too aggressive. So you know, they have a tough road to hold. We made some small strides in being able to have a citizen review on minor issues. But in the course of the conversation, I found out that each citizen has a right to basically have a review now. If you have an incident with a police officer and you're not satisfied, you can go up the chain of command immediately and possibly solve your problem. And I understand they do that, you know, on a daily basis. So, but having said that, I think the community is looking for a larger police review type of situation. What that would be, I don't exactly know. There's several groups that are working on it, and it'd have to be something that we could afford, and possibly a charter change, because we're told that it's not available through the charter.
Mark?
I do not support a review board, another committee to further bring government into the affairs. They have internal affairs. And when does the buck stop at city council to say, you know what, we have not given the police department the resources they need to be effective. They're down 25 officers. There was a work session. Here's your 2014 budget proposal, and this budget proposal does not have the $1.8 million that they're going to save, or it has the $1.8 million in it that they're going to save when they hit the lotto on 1A. And so the budget is there, and not one job was added to the police department. Not talk of one job. Now they're going to start a police academy where they're going to bring in some policemen and start training them, and they're going to tell you that this is their commitment to public safety. But the officers that they're going to train are only officers that are going to fill the empty slots from people who are retired, or officers who left and went to another community because they got paid and they can work and they get their benefits all paid for them, and they don't have to wait 4 or 5 years to get that. It is our responsibility as leaders of this community to ensure the safety of the community, and that is in hiring policemen, giving them the resources that they need to be productive, and you'll see that things change. If they don't have the people to answer calls, if they don't have the people to readily be at your beck and call, you're going to be frustrated with them. But that's not the police department's fault. That's City Council's fault for, again, prioritizing tourism beautification and LED lights over the police department. It's insanity, and it needs to stop. And I will be the voice that says something about this. It's wrong.
Okay. Bob?
One of the things that flew through my mind is, until you walk in somebody's shoes, you need to really watch how we deal with them or think about them. Police Review Board, I'll just, one word, no. Real simple, no. We don't have, it'd be like you go get a surgery and you have a bunch of your neighbors come around and they evaluate the doctor. The police, the fire, everybody else already has a chain of command which that goes through. The other thing people can do is call your councilman. It's amazing what you can do when you call your council person. Now, I rode around with the police officers for the 8 years I was there, and I probably rode 15, 20 times. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. But you know what? I couldn't believe the abuse that these people take. And when you ride around, I spent time with the fire department, I got to spend time with Public Works. All these employees, they all have one concern. They just want to do a good job. The police that we're talking about now, the verbal abuse they take, they get spit on, they get called every name in the world, and they are yes, sir, and yes, ma'am. I was amazed that they were able to do it. I think there's already the Human Relations Commission apparently has been or wants to get involved more with that. I think that's fine, but I really don't think, and somebody else said it earlier, one of the other council people, I don't think you have a lot of lay people getting involved in things that they really may not understand at all and may have all their hidden agendas. So no.
Amy, any other thoughts?
Absolutely. You know, again, I would just like to reiterate my own personal experience. I did spend time as a law enforcement officer, as a police officer on the streets, not here in Pueblo, for a couple different communities as my family was moving around this state, as my husband was promoting through the State Patrol. So we've been a law enforcement family for 25 years now. So I do understand the difficult task of policing a community, and now I'm on the other side, and I do see the budgetary constraints and the complaints from citizens who might not have that perspective as far as what the police do, in fact, have to do. So again, going forward, I think I would be a great resource and a great voice for this conversation, and I look forward to having it.
Okay. Ed?
Well, again, I really appreciate what the police officers do, especially after the stakeholders group meetings. But I think the community possibly is going to want some type of police review, and what that will be, I don't know. You know, 75% of our budget is on salaries, and we're going to be able to fill 80 positions. I don't see how we're going to live within our budget to do that. Thank you.
Mark?
The way that we do that is to prioritize. You prioritize personnel over these other projects. If you can put, what I said earlier, if you can put 80 people to work at $35,000 a year, it brings $1.9 million into the community. This city council committed to a $6 million LED light project that pays $500,000 a year and has a payback in 12 years. I'm not against LED lights and saving the money, but what I'm saying is there's a way to hire policemen. It's to prioritize in that budget that policemen, firemen, and general service employees come before these other projects. Once we get people working and once we get this community back on its feet, the nonprofits and all of these special interest projects that council, every individual council member has, they can be taken care of, but you got to have money to do that. And the only way in our society and the government is to make money is you either tax people or you create jobs and they pay the taxes that help us to keep going. You can create these jobs, and you can create them right away.
Bob, anything else?
Writing around the officers and the firemen, these people all have families. And you know why they have this job? They have this job because they care. They really care about this community. Yes, there are some that don't, and you're going to find that anywhere. But my experience with the city employees is they care about whether they're police, fire, public works, street sweep, whatever they're doing. They're not here to hassle people. They're certainly not making $1 million doing the job. And why some of these people would take this job and be abused the way they are, I don't understand. My experience with them has always been very respectful. If I've been a long time since I got a ticket, thank goodness. But everybody's been real respectful. And when I rode around with them, and if you do it enough, you're going to see them put in positions. And they're family people trying to do a nice job and keep the place safe.
Well, we have time for one more question. Ed, you'll handle this one first. What is your position on allowing marijuana operations within the city limits?
Well, the council took in May, we took a moratorium on the thing until May. I'm willing to look at it, and we're going to have the benefit of it being in the county for a period of time before the moratorium's over. Right now, the restrictions on where they can put the shops in Pueblo is so restrictive, even if we were to okay it, they couldn't meet the guidelines. I'm willing to look at it because of the increased revenue, but so far, right now, the county only gets about $2,000 a month in income, and I don't know if that's worth the added cost to the police calls and other problems that we could face. But since it's state law, we definitely want to look at it, and we need the additional revenue. So,
Mark?
I think we found out a month or two ago what the consequences are if you stand in the way of the will of the people. I'm not for marijuana. I didn't think that it was good for the city, but the point is that the people overwhelmingly in Pueblo County and the city limits approved recreational marijuana within the city. It is our responsibility as legislators of the law, if you will, that we need to look at that, and we need to embrace the will of the people. It needs to be looked at. I agree with Mr. Brown that you have to look at where they're going to be placed, where all the different things that go into it. But I won't stand in the way as the moral authority against the people.
Bob?
Short answer is yes. The state approved it, the city, the voters have approved it in the state. The county's already going ahead and plowing ahead with it. Other communities are. You know, I grew up in the 60s. This has been 50 years in the making. And whether we want to admit it or accept it or not, it's something that's been coming, and it's here. So I think we're prudent. I think we take advantage of the voters' will to be able to sell it and purchase it. I don't really personally see a whole lot of difference between that and liquor. I know I got in more trouble drinking liquor than I ever did doing other things when I was in Boulder. So I'm for it. You regulate it. We have an easy way. Other roadmaps have been set aside for us or in front of us already with other communities. And I think we jump in. There's sales tax revenue there, whether we like it or not. And those dollars spend just as well to buy a police car or a fire engine as anybody else's. That's it.
Okay. Amy?
Yeah, this is kind of funny. I don't mean to sound like such an echo of Mr. Aliff down there, but if you did read my response in the Sunday Chieftain to this question, it's pretty much what he had said is, I honestly believe in the will of the voters. The voters overwhelmingly voted to legalize recreational marijuana, and it's our obligation as city policymakers to regulate any legally operating business. And I certainly don't want to do anything that would lead us down a path of not being a pro-business city. Thank you.
Okay. Ed, any other thoughts on this?
No, I'm not opposed to it, so I can.
Okay. All right. Bob, anything else?
On the marijuana thing? I think yes is pretty to the point.
Okay. Amy? Okay.
Mayor.
Well, that concludes our question and answer portion of the program. We'll give each candidate a couple of minutes to summarize and to tell you why they think that you should vote for them. And we'll start at the opposite end this time with Ed.
I want to thank Mr. Henson and the 2020 Commission for facilitating this forum tonight. And my sincere thanks to the audience in attendance here and in the newly remodeled Memorial Hall and those watching at home. It's been a great honor and privilege to serve the citizens of District 3 for the past 8 months as your council representative. I'm past the learning curve. I clearly understand the challenges that we face, not only in District 3, but the whole city. These are difficult times, and we face some real challenges in the budget. Having acknowledged the challenges, I still am excited about the future of Pueblo. If elected to continue serving as City Council District 3 representative, I will work with other members of council on our #1 goal, creating new jobs. Together, we will look for creative ways to stretch your tax dollars, like replacing the current high-pressure sodium street lights with energy-efficient LEDs, so that savings can be passed on to possibly hire more police officers and firefighters. I will continue to work with council to prioritize the core functions of the city: public safety, the police and fire, and infrastructure. I want to again thank the audience for taking the time to watch this forum, and I ask for your vote on November 5th. Thank you.
Okay. Mark?
I too thank everyone involved. Mr. Henson, you've done a wonderful job. You're the best moderator that I've ever been with. Many of you in this room and many of you viewing at home, all of our friends and neighbors, they remember a time. They remember a time when the Rocky Mountain Steel Mill shut down. And what a disaster. It was a time like Pueblo never knew before. And let me tell you what Pueblo did when the Rocky Mountain Steel Mill went out of business and people lost their jobs. The people of Pueblo did what they do time and time and time again. They pulled up their bootstraps, they tightened their belts, and they persevered, and they became one of the most successful communities on the Front Range. It's time to instill that passion again in Pueblo. It's time to reprioritize. When the Rocky Mountain Steel Mill shut down, let me tell you what this city didn't do. It didn't commit to beautification. It didn't commit to tourism and things like that. It committed to the people of Pueblo. It committed to creating jobs within Pueblo, Colorado, not bringing them from outside, taking care of our own. I've articulated to you tonight a plan that creates jobs and a platform that has the people of Pueblo as priority #1, and it's all about the people. When I'm elected in November, I promise you that I will be the voice that District 3 hasn't had, the voice that'll ask questions and that will delve into the transparency problems with City Council. I will be the voice that will make a difference. I will bring the passion back to Pueblo. I heard a councilman speak earlier tonight that said, remember Pride City? We were Pride City. We don't need to be Pride City. We need to be Passionate City. Passionate about our people and to bring this city back to where it belongs. And that's going forward and not looking back. Thank you.
Bob?
Well, I'm going to ditto thank you everybody that made this possible, that the other people have talked about. For the 8 years that I was on council, every day I did that job, I was truly humbled and honored to do that job. Somebody asked me after it was over what was the hardest part of the job, and my response immediately was, this job takes a lot of hard think. And it takes a lot of nerve, and you have to have some pretty tough, thick leather underwear. I've got 5 children, so I've got a real good pair of leather underwear. I'm also a realist. I've heard a lot. We all have dreams for this community, and wouldn't it be great, and shouldn't we do this? But I am a realist with ideals also, but we just can't turn everything over right away, and it's not as easy as some people may think it is. There's a process to get things done. My education at the University of Colorado, I went to grad school in city planning. I wanted to be a city manager. Realized after a few family illnesses that wasn't going to take place. But I enjoy serving this community. I participate in this community. I'm 8 years into my learning curve. One of the things I truly believe when people talk about improving the quality of Pueblo, we need higher education, and we need to get in bed with the university and PCC. And when those people, I think when they go to Denver and other places to go for money, I can't imagine, and we didn't before, and so I'm partly to blame, but I can't imagine why we're not doing that. And the way we grow, the way Boulder grew, the way Longmont grew, the way Greeley grew was through their schools. I mean, that was a big part of their way they do it. They created the educational level where people want to come there, okay? If we can get more graduate programs and other programs at both PCC and CSU, I would be all for that. I've always been honored and glad to be here, and thank you again, and appreciate your vote. That's it.
Amy?
Thank you, Steve. And I, again, would also like to thank everyone involved in the opportunity that we've had to have this conversation here this evening. I'd also like to thank my family, who has been unbelievably patient. And it's my hope that my 3 boys have an enduring and everlasting respect for public service because they've seen it firsthand. I've proven over the last year to be a dedicated and devoted member of your Pueblo City Council. And I think it's really important. I thought it was very interesting here tonight after watching the at-large debate and then this one, that I'm the only woman running for a council seat. And I think that's a really important voice to have on city council. And when we talk about budgetary priorities, I think it's very interesting that it hasn't been mentioned, I don't think, in the media just yet, about our markup session on the budget last Monday. But in the initial proposed budget, our city manager had 2 layoffs of city employees. And frankly, I went into that markup session on Monday bound and determined that we were going to find the money to keep those jobs. And when we finally got out of that meeting, we did. We found the money to protect those city employees who thought come December 31st that they weren't going to be able to put food on the table. So that's the kind of consensus building and compromise that I think your council team has been doing over the past year, and I appreciate all of your support. I'm City Councilwoman Amy Naraki, and I am your District 1 representative. And Pueblo, we are in this together, and I give you my word that if you stand with me and if I earn your vote in this election, that together we will move Pueblo forward, and together we will make Pueblo a city that works for all of us. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being such a respectful audience. As we mentioned in the previous forum, this is a tough time to be in politics or to be willing to serve in public office. And I'd like you to join me in thanking these 4 individuals for being willing to make that sacrifice. Okay, a little bit of housekeeping. You should have received your mail ballots by now. If you haven't received it, you probably need to get down to the county clerk's office. The deadline to get those in, of course, is November 5th. Thanks for coming tonight, and thanks for watching tonight. Good evening.